If there's one way I had to describe that game, it would be old school. A ton of goals, a ton of fights, a real scrappy game with hits, slashes, everything left, right, and center, and I'll be breaking down everything that happened in this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's game reaction edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, and quickly before we get into the video, just real quick, a reminder to like the video right now and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So guys, let's just get right into this game against Florida. I mean, we came into this game, and as is probably reflected in the thumbnail, we knew tonight was going to be a win-win no matter what, right? Montreal has their own pick. If we lose, we get a better pick in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. If we beat Florida, we have their pick too. So we make their pick higher up in the draft, and therefore our own. But this game went a way that I just really wasn't expecting, right? Samuel Montembeault comes into this game blazing hot with like a 925 plus save percentage in each of his last, 5 starts? He's been phenomenal. He came in against Sergei Bobrovsky and the Florida Panthers, but the problem is we were wearing these guys, the reverse retros tonight, and guess what? The curse was real. Now, I will say the first period went okay. It was a weird first period. Monty was phenomenal the whole period. I will say that. Sergei Bobrovsky left the game very early in favor of, I believe, Alex Lyon. I know his last name is Lyon. I think it's Alex. And we're like, okay, Lyon, he's not really a super well-known goalie. We should be able to do a decent job. And what does he do but just rob Cole Caulfield on a grade A scoring chance right away? And it kind of set the tone for Florida. Like, this goalie comes in for an injured Bobrovsky, and he set the tone, like I said. But what looked really good for Montreal in this first period, because I'm going to spend a bit of time on this first period. The second period's where it got out of control. But the goods in this game came in the first and late in the third for Montreal. Dadonov throughout this whole game, at least offensively, looked very good again. Weird, he just seems like a different person. It's like we've seen a lot of Montreal veterans, whether it's Armia, whether it's Dadonov or Hoffman, have a couple game stretches where they're just very, very good, and then they'll probably fall off a cliff again. But Dadonov, right at the time where he needs to start performing, is showing whatever scouts were at the game tonight that he's still got something in the tank, and maybe he can produce for a contender. So good on him. He looked smooth. He had some good chances. And the Habs did a good job in the first of stopping good chances. We were kind of like keeping them away. But what happened at the end of this period is Mike Matheson, with a massive reverse hit on Eric Staal, sent him to the room, and Matheson ended up having to pay for that hit. He ended up fighting Matthew Tkachuk in this game, and if you watch the video, he held his own pretty well. I mean, Matheson is really not much of a fighter, but he did decent, landed a few punches, so did Tkachuk. Tkachuk throws him to the ground. All in all, the Bell Center was pretty happy for Matheson. I mean, that hit, you can I don't know what my opinion is on it. I'm not going to really have one. You let me know in the comments whether you think it was good or whether it was iffy, but yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. Matheson ended up having to pay for that reverse hit, but he sent Eric Staal to the room. But this is where it gets into the second period. First period had some good action, 0-0 though. But the second. So Florida gets a power play early, and they score. But Montreal challenges for goalie interference because Matthew Tkachuk was in the blue paint. Montembeault was way out of the net to the left. He tried to recover to get back into the paint to make a diving save, but Tkachuk kind of obstructed him with a foot in the paint. The problem is, even if he hadn't obstructed him, it looked like Montembeault probably wouldn't have been able to make the save, even though he's been magical over the last few games. So we were kind of like, at least my opinion was, I don't know. It's one of those goalie interference ones where I genuinely have no idea whether or not it's going to count or not. And what ended up happening is, guess what? It counted, and the NHL kind of stated that they believed that Samuel Montembeault did not have a reasonable chance to make the save, which is why they said that the goal counted. So take that for what you will. Goaltender interference is one of those things that just no one ever knows how to call properly in an NHL game. And these refs, they made that decision, or at least Toronto made that decision, and Montreal is now down 1-0, and they're heading to the penalty kill again, where Florida scores again. And now it's 2-0 because of the failed challenge, which has happened a few times this season. It's a bit of a deficit to crawl back from. Florida gets 2 power play goals early in the period, and they weren't done yet. Just a little bit later, Anderson was robbed by Lyon, and then the Habs commit one of the weirder instances of the season where they get 2 too many men calls in a row that leads to a Florida 5-on-3, and of course they score again, and then Giovanni Smith makes it 4-0, and then Matthew Tkachuk scores again and makes it 5-0. It's 5-0 in the second period, and Florida has 4 power play goals in a period. That second was wild. I don't want to get too much into it because it might have been one of Montreal's worst periods all season, just purely from the penalty perspective. And let me just show you something here. Speaking of penalties, The second period was brutal. Look at this. Here's a summary of the penalty minutes this game. And if you've been keeping track of my Xhekaj fight videos, I don't have one for this game. I'm sorry, because I know he fought again, and I know we had a Pezzetta fight, which I'll get into later, but I'm not going to be making any clip videos for those today. But, because I got home late, and anyway, you guys don't need to know my schedule. But take a look at this. Like, was it 30-something minutes for Florida, 34, and like 50-something, 40-something, 46 penalty minutes for Montreal, 46 for Montreal, 34 for Florida, 10 penalties for Florida, 12 for Montreal. Xhekaj with 20 minutes, or at the end of the second period, gets a 10-minute misconduct, and then he gets another fighting major later. Doc gets hooking, Edmondson interference, Pitlick hooking, team delay of game, unsuccessful challenge, cross-checking, and there's the back-to-back too many men. Like, it's just nuts. And you can see Florida there too. There was a couple fights later in the game and stuff, but holy crap, just scrappy. This game got a bit out of control, and when the refs after that Matheson hit, the refs kind of let it go, let that hit go, and let everything else after go except for the fight. And I think that, again, like I said earlier, set the tone. And so what ended up happening later in this game, when Montreal is now down out of nowhere 5-0 after taking 1,000,001 penalties, this game got scrappy quick. And we thought maybe we'd see Primo to start the third. I missed the start of the third. I believe Montembeault came out a little into the third. Or no, sorry, I think it was Primo to start the third. But anyway, at the start of the third, we had Pitlick scoring a goal. And yeah, it was just, this is where it went downhill. Not downhill for Montreal, because Pitlick scored, and then Anderson scored, but like this is where the Matheson versus Tkachuk thing came into play, and then Lomberg scores on his first shot. I'm just like out of it here. Everything happened at once in this game. So Montreal does make it 5-2. Let me reset my thoughts. Montreal makes it 5-2. Okay, and we had the Matheson fight in the middle there. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it was payback for that hit on Stahl. And anyway, that all happened there. And then after Montreal makes it 5-2, Ryan Lomberg comes in and immediately scores on the first shot on Caden Primo. And from here, it was just fights and physicality in a game that the refs just let get completely out of hand. Xhekaj and Giovanni Smith were going at each other for a little while this game, and they finally dropped the mitts. Xhekaj swings a bunch of rights, and he won the fight. And there's no doubt again, Xhekaj is winning every single fight he's in. At least it's decisive. He puts them down in every single fight. That sounds bad. It sounds like he kills them. He kind of does, figuratively. But no, he has been so phenomenal in fights this year. And we knew one was coming this game after how chippy it got in the third. And not long after, Michael Pezzetta goes after Ryan Lomberg. And in one of the best hair battles I've seen all season in a fight, Pezzetta's curly locks with Lomberg's straight flow. And they were just going at it. Lomberg was landing rights and lefts. Pezzetta was holding his own with a few really solid rights. And then, oh man, after this, the game was still staying super chippy. You could tell every time it was going into the boards, players were finishing their hits hard, giving little taps at the ankles, and it all culminated near the end there when Kirby Dach makes a zone entry with just a couple minutes left. He gets down to the left side of the boards in Florida's zone, and Radko Gudas, one of the best hitters and shot blockers in the league, is coming right at Dach, a big guy who is known for his hits. Dach just looks at him and just reverse hits him, just like Matheson did, except this time, Dach wasn't even moving. Gudas was coming right at him. Dach just stops him in his tracks, knocks him to the ice, and then Gudas, right after, gets up and goes after Kirby Dach's knee. Now, I'm going to need to see some replays, but to me it looked like, and to some people on Twitter, I saw it looked like, Gudas was upset that he got bodied. He was a little sooky baby that he got hit, because I'm usually the one that gets the hits, and he goes right after Kirby Dach's knee, which is just being a complete dirtbag. Like, no place for that in the game. I'm hoping that's not the case, and it just looked bad from the angle I saw, but man, that was just a rat move if it was true. And immediately you saw Josh Anderson hop on the ice because Gudas was kind of going after Dach, a non-fighter, because he got hit by a non-fighter, and Anderson was like, all right, I'll be there to protect him if I need to be. Gudas goes off, and the game just kind of ended without too many fireworks at the very end. But boy, this game was physical. There was a lot of scoring, but the penalties killed us. 4 power play goals against in the second period, and at the end of the day in the third, Montreal, the players just wanted to give the fans a treat, right? They wanted to go for a bunch of fights, at least make it exciting. They scored twice. Pitlick gets a goal, which is always awesome to see. Anderson stays pretty hot, but ultimately, it's a win-win game, like I said, right? It was a fun, entertaining game at the end. Luckily, no real injuries for Montreal. We had 3 fights. We had some big hits that were landed, so an entertaining game, and a game where we get one pick closer to Connor Bedard. Team Tank is still in full effect. It's really sad that Montembeault's day ended the way it did, because let's be honest, it's not his fault at all. His stats for this game are going to look terrible, but like I said, you look at his last 5 games, he has been the rock, the star of this team over the last little while, and he got left hung out to dry in the second period. Quick reminder, in the second period, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 penalties, 5 of which were minors, and 1 was a 10-minute misconduct at the end of the period, so you cannot blame Montembeault really on in this loss. Plus, Montreal only managed to put up 2. Primo was okay in the third, but it was a real shame. We get a better pick. The refs let this game get out of control, and honestly, we can just be thankful at the end that Montreal doesn't have any more injuries to add to our ever-growing list. But that'll do it for this game reaction edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want. The support's been amazing, especially on these last few videos where these Montreal games are getting really exciting and down to the wire. So thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse. We'll catch you in the next video.